all prophets and messengers, those whom Allah raised their station and elevated their mention, and upon their families, companions, and those who follow them, and Allah's pious servants, and Allah's angels, and Allah's slaves brought near, and everyone who Allah has selected from His servants and raised their station and degree. And may these prayers be upon us with that group, and among that group, He is the most generous and most merciful, and He is the one who's more given to show all munificence and beneficence. And the Shaykh continues, meaning an Nasai, mentioning hadiths that are mentioned in this chapter. And those who are able must give those who are able to fast must feed the needy, and to fast is better for you. This verse was abrogated with the verse that follows it, and that verse is Ramadan, the month in which the Quran was revealed. The one who is present during that month, let him fast. And that's that they were not accustomed to fasting. It was difficult for them when fasting was prescribed for a whole month. So in the beginning of fasting being prescribed, they were given a dispensation that the one who wanted to pay an expiation and instead of fasting, he was allowed to do that. And that was only for 1 year. And then that was abrogated. And then Allah said, so the one who's present and witnesses the month, he must fast. So someone who's able to fast, they are not allowed to pay an expiation. Absolutely, except those who are exempted of someone who is sick or traveling, and those and others who are menstruating and so on. He said, Qutayba told us. He said that Bakr bin Mudar, he narrated, and he's mentioning the Habib Omar's mentioned the change of the hadith. He said, when the verse was revealed, he's mentioning names from the chain. Ibn Aqwa. He said Salama bin Aqwa. He said, and he was attributed to his grandfather. His father's name is actually Amr. He said, when this verse was revealed, those who are able must pay a expiation. He said, so someone who wanted to break his fast and pay an expiation, he was allowed to do so until the next verse was revealed. And that abrogated the previous verse. And this is narrated from Ibn Omar, just as it's narrated from the Sahabi Salama, and Sahih al-Bukhari narrated. And in Bukhari, he says that is abrogated. Fidyatun ta'ama meskin, that is abrogated. And then it's clear from this that there are verses that are abrogated in the mighty Quran. And then that also is gradually making fasting obligatory, making it easy for them. And he says, so someone who wanted to feed others, he would break his fast and feed them. And then Allah said, it's better for you to fast. That got them ready to fast the whole month. And then Allah said, and the one who's president during the month, he must fast. So this previous verse was abrogated by that. And he said Ibn Abbas had the opinion that this remained concerning a old person that was unable to fast. He feeds a day. Most of the scholars said And they said that someone who's old or has an illness that they don't anticipate recovering some, they must feed. And he said, but that's established by the Sunnah. He said, as for the verse is abrogated. And he said, and it wouldn't be appropriate to say it's better for you to fast for to someone who's sick and unable to fast. They can't fast. And he said, so this verse came, said it was better to fast rather than paying the expiation. The whole thing was abrogated. And then the Sunnah said the one who is unable to fast due to old age or sickness, they a chronic illness, not an acute, just temporary condition. They uh, they they feed. And he said no one has the dispensation to feed instead of fasting except someone who's too old to fast or a sick person who's unable to fast with a chronic illness they don't anticipate recovering from. And he said he's mentioning uh, um, and his sister. This is narrated from Mu'ada, Mu'ada al-Adawiyah. A woman asked, does she have to make up missed prayers, missed prayers from the fast? She said, are you from a place called Harura, who were very severe about rulings associated with menstruation? She compared the sister to a place from that, and they were they were Khawarij. They were Khawarij who differed from the Sahaba in certain questions. He said, are you from Harura? He said, those people who, he said, we were ordered to make up our fast and not the prayer. Who told you you have to make up prayers if you menstruate? We used to have our menstruation during the time of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, and we'd be ordered to make up fasts, and we wouldn't be ordered to make up prayers. So the madhab of many scholars is it is forbidden for a woman who has menstruated to make up the missed prayers from that day. He said, if Allah obliged you not to pray, then you don't pray. And if Allah prescribed for you to make up fast, you make it up. And that's what the command of Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's a difference of opinion. Many view that it's not permissible. None of you that it's obligatory, but some view that it's not permissible to even make up. And so Sayyidatuna Aisha said, if I have fasts from Ramadan, and I hadn't made them up until Sha'ban comes. So what's meant is I'm not able to make it up. And she said, until Allah's Messenger passed. So a woman who is menstruating, she's not obliged to fast. That's by consensus.
شعبان.
And she cannot delay making up until sh-
ولا فدية إلا إذا أخرتها عن رمضان الثاني.
she is permitted to
فجمهور
not
أهل
make up
العلم
until the next Ramadan.
يجوز القضاء متفرقا
Most of the scholars say she is able to make it up,
الشافعية
her fast up
والجمهور
gradually.
إذا أفطر بغير عذر. فإذا أفطر بغير عذر
However, the Shafis say if someone breaks their fast
متابعة
without an excuse, they are obliged to quickly and immediately make it up.
يجوز أن يأخر
As for
الصوم إلى
someone
شعبان
who broke with a excuse, they are allowed to delay their makeup fast until the next Shaban.
إذا لم يبقى من شعبان إلا بمقدار
And then
أيام
when the only the amount of days they miss remains from Shaban, then they're obliged to make it all up for those
جمهور أهل
days.
العلم.
The vast majority of
وبعض
scholars,
الأئمة
that's their
يرى
view.
وجوب
And then
التتابع
some scholars have the view the obligation of immediate of consecutive making up.
وقال ابن المنذر
And
عليه
Ibn
السلام
Mundhir, he narrated from Sayyidatina Aisha,
إذن تكون عليها أيام
she had
متتابعة
days.
ما دخلوا أن يتفعل كانت آه، تحيض تسعا
Someone who would
ونحوها.
menstruate for like 9 days,
إذا قضتها
if she
متتابعة
made it all up consecutively,
النبي صلى
it
الله عليه
would
وسلم ينبه
occur that the Prophet ﷺ came and she would be serving him and serving his guests.
فرجعت تأخر
So she would
ثلاثة
delay,
أيام
delay, delay.
أنه لابد من
If the
التتابع
madhab was,
إلى أن يجي شعبان والنبي كان
if the
يوصي
madhab was that you had to do it all consecutively,
حتى قبل يعني لما قبل
uh,
صارت إذا جاء شوال صام.
so she knew he would fast a lot in Shaban, so she could make it up then. And then when he passed, then she started making it up in Shawwal, radiallahu anha.
فيجوز تفريق قضاء رمضان
So it's permissible to separate the days of makeup of Ramadan with most scholars, the majority of scholars. However,
والتتابع
doing it
أفضل والمبادرة
consecutively and immediately is better,
بغير عذر فيجب عليهم
unless they missed it without an excuse, then they're obliged to make it up immediately and consecutively. And the
والفدية إذا
expiation,
أخروا عن رمضان الثاني على خلافين.
if you delay makeups until the next Ramadan, then there's an expiation based on the opinion of some scholars, though there's a difference of opinion about that.
ويدمرون بزر العبودي فلجمهورهم هذا مخصوص بيوم عاشوراء في سنة
And
واحدة
then
في السنة
this next
الثانية
hadith, where the Prophet
من
ﷺ ordered those who are not fasting to keep to refrain from eating, and those who are fasting to keep fasting. That happened 1 year, and that was specific with
السبب
Ashura.
المبيح للصوم للفطر ومن حيض أو سفر ونحو في
The
أثناء
summer,
فلا يلزم ما يلزم أن يكمل لكن
someone who
أن يمسك بقية
their
اليوم
menstruation ends or journey ends while they're fasting,
ما
they're not obliged, but it's sunnah for them not to eat for the rest of the day.
إتمام اليوم أو قديم من السفر إلى الحضر وهو
He said,
صائم
however,
يجب
someone
عليه
who
إتمام
returns from
اليوم.
a trip while fasting,
إذا قدم وهو
they are
مفطر
obliged to fast the rest of the
فلا
day.
يلزم
But
إتمام
if
اليوم.
they return and they aren't fasting, they're not obliged to refrain from food for the rest of the day.
ويتكلم بعد ذلك عن إجماع من الليل الصوم وهو النية أن تكون
And
في الفترة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين ورضي الله عنكم من كتاب بهجة المحافل.
the next book is Bahjat al-Mahafil.
زاد
Al-Bukhari added
فدعا
that Zuhri said, Herakl called his greats.
يا
He
معشر
said,
القوم
"O people of Rome, would you like to be successful eternally and your kingdom to remain?"
حيصة حمر الوحش.
حمر الوحش الى الابواب.
And they tried to run like wild animals out of the room, and they found the doors were locked. And he said, I was just testing how firm you were in your religion. And then they prostrated for him, and they were satisfied with him. And in the Sahih Bukhari,
نصل في فوائد هذا الحديث.
this chapter mentioning the benefits of this hadith. if you reflect about what Herakl understood about Prophet Muhammad,
من أوصافه صلى
his
الله
attributes, sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
وسلم تبينت قوة
his
إدراكه
his
بينت قوة
his
إدراكه
comprehension will become clear.
ولله دره من رجل لو ساعد معقوله
And how many people, their
من
intelligence
أجل
didn't
الملك
happen,
مع
their
الأسف.
capabilities. He didn't embrace Islam because of his political power that he's trying to maintain.
شح بالملك وأخلدت إلى الرئاسة
And
فآثر
Habib Omar said,
الرياسة
Miskeen.
ولو
He
أراد
preferred
الله
his
هدايته
his
لوفقه
authority
الله
over religion, and were Allah to have guided him, He would have enabled him to obey as an Najashi, the Ethiopian king, did. He embraced Islam and maintained his power.
رجلوا
وهرقل
Heraklu is his name.
حراء وسكون
That's how
القاف
it's pronounced.
بدمشق
Heraklu.
وهو اسم علم لا ينصرف
And it is a proper name. It's not a title, it's a proper name.
وأما قيصر فهو لقب لكل
Qaisar,
من ملك
we would say
كما
Caesar.
يقال
That is the term that is applied to the Roman kings.
والترك
And in
آغا
Ethiopian, they call him An Najashi,
وحمير قيل
and
واليمن تبع
قيل
قيل
and he's listing various languages.
واليمن تبع
In Yemen, they call it King Tubba.
أنه يستحب تصدير الكتاب ببسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
And in this hadith, it indicates that you should begin a letter, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, or Alhamdulillah. And each of them is a sunnah.
ثم باسم المكتوب إليه قال
And the person who's writing,
أما في العنوان فبالعكس
he begins with the name, his own name, and the one he's writing to.
روى البخاري أن هرقل علم أن هذا رسول الله.
And Bukhari said that Herakl knew that this was Allah's messenger. There were clear signs.
الحاشية حقه
He wanted to see if his cabinet
واللي من قومه
and those who were close to him,
أصحاب
of those who he is governing, and the people he consulted,
الرئاسة ومجلس
in you know
يسمونهم من الأسماء فجماع الكبار هؤلاء
he gathered the greats, the people of eminence from his people,
جلس في التذكرة
and then he sat above them,
يراهم
watching them,
وأمرهم إذا دخلوا يغلقوا الأبواب
and then they ordered them when they enter, lock the doors.
فدخلوا
So they came,
وقال لهم
and they said,
علمتم بالكتاب الذي جاءنا من عند محمد
"You've known of the letter that has come from Muhammad,
كان هذا رسول من عند الله تعالى
and he's a messenger from Allah Most High. So would you like to be guided, eternally saved, and your power to remain?" And we follow him. And they went crazy. They ran like wild animals, and they found the doors locked. So then he said, "Now bring them back to me." He said, "I only said this to you to see your firmness in your religion. And I've seen that I saw what I love from you." And they prostrated to him, and they were content with him. And he said if they would accept Islam, he was going to embrace Islam. So when Allah didn't will good for him, he didn't prefer Islam over his power. And he knew that Allah's messenger was Allah's messenger. And it comes in the books of biography with hadith that are Hasan, that he had a group of companions after him, and they had pictures of the prophets. And he was showing them pictures one after the other of the prophets, and they were behind doors. And they opened one door and said, "Do you know who this one is?" And they said, "No, we don't know who he is." He said, "This is Idris." And then he opened another door and showed them a picture. They said, "No, we don't know who that is." He said, "That's Ibrahim." And then he opened another door and he said, "This is Moses." And then he opened a door, and the Sahaba were shaken, and they said, "What?" He said, "That's the picture of our Prophet." And he said, "That is him. The other doors I opened just to see what you knew." He said, "These pictures were revealed to Adam. he wanted to see the prophets of his descendants. So Allah revealed to him plaques or slates that had pictures of the prophets, and they've remained with us. This is the people of the book.
وفيها صور كثيرة.
And there are many pictures of the prophets.
السلام عليهم. الله يثبتنا على
May Allah
الإسلام.
make us firm in Islam. May Allah make us firm in Islam. So this is a book of Al-Majmu' of Al-Imam al-Nawawi. He said a corollary. Know that Qadi Abu Ya'la Muhammad bin Hussein bin Muhammad Fira al-Hanbali, he wrote a volume about the obligation of fasting on the day of doubt. And then another Shafi'i wrote a volume repudiating that position. And he said, I have both of these volumes.
قاصديهما.
No. So then he's just reading the back and forth about this position. One of them that said it was obligatory to fast the day of doubt, the other refuting that.
وجوب صيام عن رمضان رواها عنه الأثرم والمروزي ومهنا وصالح والفضل بن زياد.
And he said, Qadi bin Farah, he said that it's narrated from Imam Ahmed. If there are clouds in front of where the moon would rise on the evening of the 30th of Sha'ban, and there's three narrations. One, obligatory to fast for Ramadan. The second, and he said another position, and that is the position of Umar bin al-Khattab, and Ibn Omar, and Omar bin Abdul Aziz, and Amr bin al-As, and Anas and Muawiyah, and Abu Hurairah, and Aisha, and Asma, and Bakr bin Abdullah. And they took a proof from the hadith of Ibn Omar, fast to its citing, and yeah. And then Habib Omar said, he said, and he said they let them write research in books of knowledge, and we'll read it tomorrow. And he's praying for someone who passed. May Allah raise their degrees and make their grave a garden of paradise. And he's mentioning people that died in Tarim, that he's going to go pray for them on their funeral. May Allah raise their degrees and make their graves gardens of paradise. May Allah have mercy upon us if we return to the likes of that. Ameen. Ameen. وإلى حضرة النبي اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى الفاتحة.